welcome to my inquiry. My inquiry topic is, why is lactose intolerant becoming more common? Now this is an interesting topic because if you search it up on Google, instead of giving you a definite answer as to why it's becoming more common, it shows where it's most common in countries. So here we go. So first off, we have to understand what lactose intolerance is. Well, lactose intolerance is a condition in which an individual is missing the LCT gene that allows the small intestine to produce lactase. Lactase is an enzyme that breaks down lactose, which can be found in dairy products, without any problems. So those without lactase are lactose intolerant. And people who are lactose intolerant experience uncomfortable symptoms because of the bacteria in their gut breaking down the lactose. So they may experience bloating, gas, diarrhea, vomit, nausea, all of those. So, and you may think that lactose intolerance is a digestive issue, but it's actually a genetic issue. So, more about this mutation, the LCT gene. So this mutation allows an individual the ability to tolerate lactose. So all infants, most of us are born with the recessive LCT gene in order for us to survive on breast milk. But as we age, our ability to do so fades. So a little more about the history of lactose. So lactose intolerance dates back as far as humans were, but around 5,981 BC in Northern Europe. There were shorter crop growing seasons and colder winters in the north. Therefore, they had to rely on milk. But back then, there was no lactase gene, so everyone was lactose intolerant. So they all experienced the symptoms if they drank milk. However, due to the shorter crop growing seasons, they were faced with famine a lot. So they were faced with either those uncomfortable symptoms or death by starvation. So obviously they chose those uncomfortable symptoms. So as time went on, natural selection took place and made having the LCT gene favorable. So from there, generations would pass down this LCT gene. So that's why most of Northern Europe actually has this gene. So a little more on the frequency. So as I just said, only 5% of Northern European descent are lactose intolerant. However, countries closer to the border, that percentage increases to 50%. So people of African, Hispanic, and Asian descent are more likely to be affected. In fact, East Asian communities are affected, 70 to 99% of the population is affected by lactose intolerance. And that's because of the different diets. For example, people in China did not have to rely on milk, they had soy. So they would eat soy for their protein, whereas people from the northern hemisphere would have to rely on milk. So age is also another factor, and this supports what I just said, as we age, our ability to tolerate lactose fades. So there was a study about children under the age of 6 are not as susceptible to lactose intolerance as adults. However, that susceptibility increases by the time the child is aged 10 to 16. So here are some theories that I developed as I was researching into lactose intolerance for why it's becoming more common nowadays. So my first theory is interracial families. So ethnicities from different regions, so as you know, ethnicities from different regions affect the frequency of lactose intolerance. So, and we know that lactose intolerance is a dominant trait, whereas the LCT mutational gene, lactase, is recessive. Therefore, with interracial families, for example, a Northern European descent and an East Asian descent, their children will most likely be lactose intolerant because of the dominant trait. So with an increase of interracial families, there's bound to be an increase of lactose intolerance. Another theory is diversified meals. So for example, there are more there's experimenting with more cultured dairy-free meals nowadays. There's not just one meal on downtown. You can have a choice from Chinese food, Mexican food, Italian food, so there's all those choices. And people if you were to take a break from dairy because of those diets, stronger tolerances can take time from dairy without inducing an intolerance, whereas weaker tolerances will most likely become intolerant if they were to have a break from dairy. And this is because if you do not utilize the enzyme lactase, the body will redirect energy to another source that can be more useful. So my other theory is people are canceling dairy in their diet completely, which of course, dating back to this right here, your body is going to utilize it for something else. So we now recognize that dairy is not needed in our lifestyle, as it can contribute to heart disease, diabetes, and Alzheimer's disease because it is actually one of the most saturated fats in an American diet. So this is the new Canadian food guide. As you can see, there's no dairy on it. There's an abundance of fruit and vegetables, there's protein, grains, and water, no milk. So, but you may be asking, what about like bone health and calcium? Well, there was a study and apparently there is no benefits for bone health whatsoever. There's a study of 96,000 teenage men who were drinking milk, and they found out that the men who were drinking milk were more susceptible to bone fractures. So that's interesting. So something about the dairy industry going on there. So if you are lactose intolerant, there are treatments and substitutes that you can take. So for example, there are lactase pills and drops. This gives you an artificial lactase enzyme before you ingest a dairy product. And then there's almond, oat, coconut, many milks to drink from. And not only are they tastier, but they are better for your health as they are better in good fats. So thank you for listening.